These are the plaintiffs, Donald and Kiana. Donald says the defendant's a certified accountant, and she made a huge mistake on their taxes in 2016. They now owe the IRS $5,638.42 due to the defendant's ineptitude. That's why they're suing. This is the defendant, Barbara. She says the plaintiffs refused to send her the paperwork from the IRS so she can see where the discrepancy is. They refused to let her handle the situation by showing her the IRS correspondence. And she doesn't owe them any money because she prepared their taxes based on the information they provided to her. She's accused of not computing.
All parties, please raise your right hands. People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Leon is now presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Donald and Ms. Kiana, you are suing your tax preparer of 2017, Ms. Barbara, for $5,638.42 that you now owe the IRS, and you say that's her fault. Tell me what's going on here.
All right. So we had utilized her. We had used her the year prior to do our taxes. No issues, no problems, of course. So during that year, she had told us that we could save all of our receipts for the next year, and we could apply them to our 2017 taxes. So that's what we
Receipts
did. We saved anything. She said we could save any receipt that we purchase anything or whatever we use receipts for, that we can apply them to our taxes. That's what she told us.
Anything that you bought, like if you bought a hamburger, you could deduct it from your taxes?
She told us to keep every receipt. That's exactly what she told us. Yes.
Well, no, you should keep every receipt, but go ahead. All right, go ahead. You go ahead.
So we meticulously kept every receipt. In 2017, she did our taxes like she did the year before. And 2019, around October of 2019, we received a letter from the IRS stating that we were going to be audited. So as soon as we were audited, we contacted her about the audit. And we sent her paperwork as to what the audit was about. And they said that we filed too many exemptions for that year, for the year of 2017.
Not too many exemptions, that you filed too many deductions. You're a W-2 employee, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
What do you do for a living?
Well, right now I'm unemployed.
What did you do for a living in 2017?
I worked for the railroad.
Okay, so you get a paycheck, and then at the end of the year you get a W-2, and then you made a certain amount, and then you took 50% of that amount you took in deductions, right?
Okay. Well, okay, so I understand what you're saying.
What are you smiling at, Barbara? Aren't you the one who prepared the taxes?
I'm not smiling. I did prepare his taxes.
That was a red flag for the IRS, don't you think?
Okay, so it could possibly throw a red flag depending on what he's deducting.
How on earth can someone take 50% in itemized deductions?
He deducted his employee expenses, which he works on the railroad, so they can deduct their 50% of their meals, 50% of their lodging, because he's not at home all the time. He can deduct any tuition fees that are like, they had a kid that was in school that they took that deduction.
Okay. So what did you take in deductions the prior year?
We didn't take any deductions the prior year.
Okay. And is it any big fat surprise to you as a grown person that if you buy a toaster, you can't deduct it as a business expense?
No, you're absolutely right.
So you thought you would be able to you really believed that you would be able to take more than half of your salary off as a business deduction?
No, I was not.
How about you, Barbara? Did you really think the IRS wasn't going to flag this? When over 50% of his salary was a deduction?
So they initially contacted me July of 2019, and they sent their I told them to bring me what they are being audited for. I need to see the IRS paperwork as to when they're being audited, what they're being audited for. And they sent me something saying that they need to show receipts. I asked them to bring me all of their receipts, and I would break them out into categories so I can let them know what they can and can't deduct and what to send in. I actually took all of their receipts, broke them out into categories, took photocopies of the receipts along with a spreadsheet, and we mailed that off. They came back and picked
To the
receipts
IRS.
up. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it
And
added
then?
up to what I have.
Okay.
And then
Now, what did the IRS say about that stuff that you sent in?
they received a letter stating that the IRS wasn't accepting their receipts. And then they said they received more
What do you
letters.
mean? I'm sorry. When you say accepting their receipts, you mean the IRS was not agreeing with them and finding in their favor?
Yes.
Okay. How is it that you, first of all, are you a CPA?
Yes.
Okay. I'm looking at the IRS paperwork that she says you didn't send her. And in that IRS paperwork, what they tell you is there's a deficiency, and they tell you what the deficiency is, like $4,800. The itemized deductions are being disallowed, and they want you to pay, you're lucky you didn't get a penalty. They want you to pay the amount plus interest from the time that you should have paid it, because you should have paid it 3 years ago. So they want $640 in interest because you should have paid it and didn't. And you had a hearing, not a hearing, but you appealed to the board. And I'm looking here at an explanation from the IRS. Before we can allow your receipts, a reimbursement policy statement from your employer is necessary. The letter from your employer must state what type of expenses you are expected to incur and if the plan is accountable or not accountable. Did you ever provide that? Did you ever provide a letter from your employer?
No.
Why not? They told you they needed that.
Because what I'm trying to explain to you is I kept receipts. And when I say I kept receipts for like medical expenses. I kept receipts for
Mr. Donald, you're not listening to my question. I need you to listen to my actual question.
No, I didn't.
I have a real simple question. Why?
Okay.
All they're asking is, look, you took a bunch of business. This is the gist of what the IRS is asking in this letter to you. Mm-hmm. They say, hey, some things are deductible, some things aren't. You're telling me that all these things, uniforms, meals, hotel, whatever is deductible. Before I can accept your receipts, what the IRS needs is a letter from your employer stating what type of expenses you're expected to incur and if they are reimbursable. This is like tax 101 in terms of you have no business deducting them if your company is reimbursing you already for it, or you can't deduct your pleasure meal and pretend it's a company meal. So it's real simple. All you had to do was go to the railroad and get them to write a letter saying, oh, yes, we expect them to incur all these expenses. But you didn't do that because I think that you know that you had a bigger piece of the pie than you were allowed to get. Why didn't you just answer and get a letter from your employer? You tell me. Why didn't you?
I didn't work with that employer anymore.
So
what? I didn't work with that employer.
You think the railroad isn't going to answer? So what? They don't have a phone number?
No, I know. I understand what you're saying. However, like I said, I didn't work there anymore, and
you couldn't get a letter.
No.
No one can get a letter once they stop working there.
No, I'm not saying that I couldn't get a letter once I stopped working there. What I'm explaining is that everything that we took receipts for is what our tax preparer asked us to get. So no, I didn't get a letter from the railroad.
Donald, 3 years later, when the IRS is breathing down your neck and they say, if you want to persist in this, then just give us a letter from your employer that says that these things are expected of you, they're business expenses, they just ask you to verify it. That's all you got to do is get that letter if they're legit. And if you can't get that letter, I think we all know that they're not legit. So the question is, who bears the brunt of that? Should you be able to come into court and then tell your tax preparer, not only do I want you to pay the interest I had to pay, because they're making me pay interest, I want you to pay my taxes. That's your theory?
Can I speak?
Yes, Ms. Barbara.
Okay, and they also received a return that year also.
A refund? Is that what you meant to say?
Yes, they received a refund.
I think you were incredibly aggressive. I think you have an obligation to manage your client's expectations. I think that you know what you were doing. Let me just say something, just in case anybody thinks I'm an idiot. I'm not an idiot, okay? Everybody here knew what damn time it is. Everybody knew what time it is. Everybody, okay? Including the judge, all right? So now when it's time to pay the piper, you want her to pay your taxes, not just the interest, but your taxes. No. And you got an interest-free loan all that time. No. So guess who's going to eat both the taxes he should have paid back then and the $600 in interest? You are. But you, Ms. Barbara, frankly, you have a little bit of soul searching to do, because I understand that everybody does a little stretch. This is a disgusting red flag stretch, okay? And you need to be a little better than that in your job.
Donald, Kiana, let me ask you what you're thinking of what the judge just said. It was unreasonable what you were expecting to do and get in this court.
I'm not the CPA. I'm not the one who filed the taxes. So I turn everything in like she told me to turn in, and then we'll go from there. I'm not a certified public accountant.
And we trusted her to take care of it. That's why we pay her to do our taxes.
All right, let me talk to you, Barbara. Do you think you were accurate in putting their returns together or not?
I do.
Obviously you weren't.
Because they gave me a spreadsheet as to their expenses, along with, after I received their receipts, I broke out everything and it came up to exactly what I put on there, including their medical and all of his business expenses. They all came up to that amount.
So you think that's all legit? Well, listen, you win the case. They can't force you to pay that money, but if you think everything was totally legit, maybe you ought to challenge it in some way. I don't know. What do you think?
And that's why I tried to help.
All right. Harvey, what do you think?
Okay, Doug. Well, look, the judge said that the plaintiff should have known that the deductions were improper, and I think that really does raise an important issue, which is you go to a tax preparer, which is great, but you shouldn't just blindly accept what the tax preparer says. You should ask questions. I realize you're saying you hired a professional, so the professional should do his job or her job, but the fact is sometimes they don't, and you got to protect yourself.
Hey, judges, what's your favorite thing to do together? Thanks.
What do you think our favorite thing to do together is? I travel, certainly.
Yeah, I would say vacationing, traveling, but when we travel in particular, I like hiking.
Yeah.
I like getting out into the woods, the mountains. I like to get out there. As you know, I like that way more than the beach.
Yeah.
And the seashore. The beach and the seashore, you get sand, it's stuck in your...
I love the ocean.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And, second, the first runner-up to that is probably just sitting down and having a glass of wine, maybe watch the sunset, stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right?
That is our favorite thing.
That's one of your favorites.
That is our favorite thing to do together, the most consistently throughout the last 30 years.
That's because that's something we can do every day, almost. Yeah. And hiking in the mountains, not so much.
Right.
Only when we're in the mountains.
Yeah.